Stalled, I think, would be the nice way of putting it. Everyone dug in on their side seems to be the more realistic way to describe it. The president tweeting this morning, we build a wall or close the southern border. He has called Democrats obstructionist over the past 2 days multiple times. The White House says that they made an offer to Democrats last week, and last night Democrats said that they are not going to counter it. As for that threat to close the southern border, Budget Director Mick Mulvaney says it is a serious threat and all options are on the table.
We were meeting on the Hill. I thought it was the vice president. I thought it was more appropriate to go down to the Hill, so that's where we went.
So
again, if they're not the last discussion,
January 3rd.
We're here, and they know where to find us. And
well, why not invite
we put we put the last offer on the table. Okay? In a negotiation, everybody who's done this, you guys have done this for your own salaries. You don't make an offer and then make another offer and make another offer. We made an offer last Saturday night. They told us that they get back to us by the end of the week. They got back to us last night and said, we're leaving.
The White House says they came down from their ask of $5 billion for border security and a wall, but they won't confirm exactly what the current number, the current offer is.
Look, we've made that clear to the Democrats. I'm not going to negotiate in the press, but the president has been willing to negotiate on this point, and the Democrats have not been willing to do anything. And that's the sad part. They care more about keeping our borders open than keeping our government open.
A spokesperson for House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi released a statement last night in response to the White House. It said this, quote, Democrats have offered Republicans 3 options to reopen government that all include funding for strong, sensible, and effective border security, but not the president's immoral, ineffective, and expensive wall. Rick?
So now Secretary Nielsen will be heading to the southern border?
Yeah, that's right. We expect her to head down there sometime today. The trip comes on the heels of an 8-year-old young boy from Guatemala dying while in the custody of Border Patrol. It was the second child to die this month in their custody. As a result, Customs and Border Protection said that all children in their custody would receive a secondary medical screening. Nielsen said that she would travel to the U.S.-Mexico border this week so that she could see firsthand the medical screenings and conditions at Border Patrol stations. Rick?
Allison Barber at the White House. We know you'll have a busy day ahead of you. Thanks very much.
We want to bring in now the incoming acting White House Chief of Staff and Director of the OMB, Mick Mulvaney. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Mr. Mulvaney, why did this happen? And what's going to be done to make sure it never happens again?
Yeah, that is just a heartbreaking story, but I think in a very, very difficult and painful way, it sort of illustrates exactly the very best of our immigration and the very worst, and why legal immigration is so important and wonderful for this country, and illegal immigration is so different. And one of the reasons that the president is still here fighting for border security. There's too many of those stories. They need to stop, and border security would be one thing we could do to help accomplish that.
How closely is the president following this story? I know that news is still developing.
Yeah, we actually talked about it with him late last night. The president's been here, by the way, all weekend, all Christmas. He's staying in Washington, D.C. over New Year's. He's canceled his plans for Christmas. Now he's canceled his plans for New Year's. So we're talking on an hourly basis about not only what's happening in California, but also what's not happening in Washington, D.C. with Senate Democrats. So the president is very heavily engaged in this on almost a minute-by-minute basis.
Absolutely, and we are following it on a minute-by-minute basis as well. But this conversation about illegal immigration, about the wall, is front and center there in Washington, whether the Democrats are there or not to cut a deal with. Yeah. The president tweeted this just moments ago, and we want to get your reaction to it. He said, we will be forced to close the southern border entirely if the obstructionist Democrats do not give us the money to finish the wall and also change the ridiculous immigration laws that our country is saddled with. Hard to believe there was a Congress and president who once approved. He said he'll close it all down because of these ridiculous immigration laws. Is he willing to go that far?
I think he is, and I think he's just trying to draw light to the fact that this is a crazy discussion to be having. All of the Chuck Schumer voted for border security in 2006. He voted for it again, I think, in 2011. It seems like Democrats really like border security when there's a Democrat in office and don't like it when Donald Trump is in office. And I think what the president is trying to do, and rightly so, is shed some light on what's happening here. In all fairness, I think that having worked with the vice president, I met with Leader Schumer last Saturday, the last time we sat down face to face, and my gut was that he was really interested in doing a deal and coming to some sort of compromise. But the more we're hearing this week is that it's Nancy Pelosi who's preventing that from happening.
Well, Mick, let's put up this headline from Politico right now to show where she is. It says Dems New Year's resolution, stiff Trump on the wall and reopen the government. How is it you intend to get any progress with positions like that?
Well, I'll tell you where we are, and then we'll talk about progress. The Democrats offered us $1.3 billion for border security, the border barrier. Keep in mind, everybody agrees at this point. Some folks use the term wall, and they mean different things. Everyone agrees that what we can and should be building on that southern border is that steel barrier that the president tweeted out. That's what he wants to build. The Democrats, believe it or not, don't call that a wall. They know that we have the ability to do that, and that would be a functional barrier. So everybody's okay with design. They offered us $1.3 billion to do that. We countered with $5 billion. They came back at walking away from the table. The Democrats have simply shut down the discussions. They did not even counter us. We went back to them, by the way, after their second $1.3 billion and picked a number less than 5. So we actually came off of our $5 billion slightly. They, instead of coming up from their $1.3 billion, left town. And I think that speaks a lot about what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Well, is there any negotiation going on behind the scenes right now? Are phone calls being made? Or any kind of movement at all? Or they just left town and that's it?
No, they left town, and I think the reason they did is because Nancy Pelosi, in fairness, does not have the votes for the speakership yet. She cannot be seen by her party as being weak on negotiating with Donald Trump, so we fully expect that until she is elected speaker and has locked that vote up, we don't expect to hear from the Democrats again. They told us last night that they were not countering our last offer.
Mr. Director, it was $25 billion was possibly on the table. Now it's 5. It was 1.3. We even heard one of your former colleagues, Mark Meadows, who's been really strong on this issue, was on another network yesterday. We want to play what he had to say and get you to respond. Listen.
Certainly the vast majority of Republican members of the conference understand that there may be a compromise between 5.7 billion and 1.6 or wherever the number may be. But as we're looking at it, whether it's 2.5 or 2.7, it doesn't matter. Chuck Schumer has said no, and the American people see that as a compromise. I see that as a compromise. And so certainly if that's on the table, you would find a number of Republican members encouraging the president to go ahead and accept that.
Mr. Mulvaney, a lot of Trump supporters feel like 5 is already a compromise, $5 billion. So to now start to float out there 2.5, 2.7, wouldn't that look like a cave on this key issue?
A couple different things. First of all, you mentioned the $25 billion. You can put that one aside. That was smoke and mirrors. The Democrats say they offered $25 billion, but they did so in a way that only Washingtonians could understand. They were going to authorize $25 billion, which means they were actually going to spend $0. So put that one aside.
Not appropriations,
Exactly. But what Mark is talking about is something entirely appropriate. If you're at $5 billion on something and I'm at 1.3, and we're talking about money, maybe there is a place in between that we can compromise. You can get a little bit of what you want. We can get a little bit of what we want. Keep in mind, anything that opens the government is going to require 60 votes in the Senate, and that means it must have some Democrat support. So that's why we tried to negotiate. Not sure why they tried to leave town.
But Democrats, wait. Hold on. The American people wanted a wall. What is the president, what deal then now is President Trump willing to accept that is anything short of that wall?
Oh, no, we're still building the barrier. That's why the government is closed. Is the president is not willing to give up on the southern barrier. Keep in mind that steel slat fence that he sent the picture out. That is the ideal border barrier. It's what CBP wants. It's what everybody says will actually do the job best. So we're not giving up on that. It's why the government is closed. But it makes sense to sit down across the table when you're trying to negotiate with another party and see if there's someplace in the middle between their 5 and our 1.3.
So what deal are you willing to accept?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you guys that.
But let me ask this. We're talking about money, $5 billion, $1.5 billion, $2.7 billion. Why aren't there other things on the table? DACA, for example. Is that being negotiated?
That's a great question, and we've, again, gone to the Democrats over the course of the last year. Keep in mind that this just didn't come up in the last couple of weeks. The president has made it very clear since early summer that he wanted $5 billion for the border wall and for border security, so it doesn't come as a surprise. We have talked to the Democrats about talking about different things, about different changes to our immigration laws. Keep in mind, this is a border security discussion, not just a border wall. There's other things broken with our border security, including the laws that allow folks to stay here. Keep in mind, I think one of the stories that didn't get nearly enough attention last week was the agreement with Mexico, whereby they will be keeping asylum seekers in Mexico. Someone crosses the border illegally, asks for asylum. Last week, they were able to stay in this country indefinitely. Now they're going back to Mexico pending their process. That's a huge improvement in our border security. So things like that are already being discussed. So yeah, we do, you're absolutely right, to talk mostly about the money, but there's other things being discussed at the same time.
Mr. Director, Nancy Pelosi calls the wall immoral, ineffective, and expensive. We know it's effective. We know it's $5 billion is not expensive in Washington dollars. In taxpayer real dollars, we know it is. But the morality of it, tell that to the family of Corporal Singh. Tell that to the family of Kate Steinle. The moral thing to do is to keep it shut down until you get a wall. Trump supporters are going to expect that. How attuned to you are you to the reality that a compromise that makes it look like Republicans are caving again? Here we go. Democrats always. No, that is a real thing that has to be factored in, right?
Keep in mind, we're not compromising on the importance of border security. You're right, Nancy Pelosi is wrong on all of those things, especially the morality. My reaction was the same as yours, which is go ask the family of the folks who have been victims of illegal immigration how moral this is.
Yeah.
But we're not compromising on the importance of border security. We're simply trying to come to a deal on the amount of money that we will spend in the next fiscal year. This is part of how government works. It's what you have to do when the Democrats do have those votes in the Senate, which they do. Again, 60 votes required to pass this in the Senate. So we're not compromising on the importance of border security, just how much money we're going to spend.
The president
next
has
year.
floated the nuclear option. Is that a possibility in the Senate? He tweeted about it about a week ago.
I wish all options were open. Again, we need folks to talk with us. We need folks to at least discuss with us. I cannot. It still strikes me as very unusual that the Democrats did not provide a counter offer to our last discussion. They simply left town. Again, the president is here. The president canceled his plans. Where's Chuck Schumer? Where Nancy Pelosi? They're not even talking right now, and we don't think they will until after the new Congress is sworn in.
If he's there, why doesn't he do an Oval Office address? We just had this very tragic event, which is really bringing, to the forefront what's at stake, the safety of not just police officers, but all Americans. Why isn't he using all the tools at his disposal?
Oh, I think the president's pretty good at communicating, don't you? I mean, I'm the O&B director. I'm the incoming acting chief of staff. I'm not the person who's going to tell the president the best way to communicate. He's pretty good at it. The fact that you brought up 3 or 4 of his tweets already today, his message is getting out there. What we need people to start to ask is, why aren't the Democrats talking? Are they really so afraid that is Nancy Pelosi's speakership worth shutting the government down? Is Nancy Pelosi's speakership worth leaving the border unprotected? That's the discussion that we wish people would be having, because that is exactly what's happening in Washington, D.C. Democrats are choosing her speakership, the importance of her taking that office over what's best for the country.
All right, incoming acting Chief of Staff Nick Mulvaney, thank you very much, sir, for taking time.
Appreciate it.
Good morning, y'all.
You got it.
Happy New Year.